business risk now and climate risk have intertwined, and it's very real.
And is that what the book's about?
The book is about this big looming thing that we think is going to eat us all, and we're doing nothing about it. And I show that's not true. I wanted to try and tell the story of solutions, to tell the story of success rather than problems.
You feel so powerless as a small business. Do you see that the big businesses have to lead and with government support?
The number of people working on climate solutions is just absolutely bonkers already and growing. So it can be done, but it's not being done at the pace we need.
We are going back to the future this week with the excellent Akshat Rathi and his optimistic take on climate change. Glad someone's being optimistic about it. Akshat is a Bloomberg senior climate journalist and the author of Climate Capitalism, Winning the Global Race to Zero Emissions. We spoke to him about his book and why climate solution investment needs to be made in both the developing world and emerging markets to help them move away from coal, why he felt it was so important to tell positive stories to help accelerate the fight against climate change, and why he abandoned the idea of being a scientist after getting a PhD to become a storyteller in order to make a positive impact on the world. As you'd expect from someone who writes for Bloomberg, he's very balanced and very astute and positive, thank goodness. He's happy to concede that climate change isn't the only crisis facing humanity, but if we don't fix it, it'll make the others a whole lot worse. You can't help feeling more joyful and positive after spending time in his lovely company, so give it a go. Enjoy. Hello, and welcome to Business Without Bullshit. I am Andy Uri, and alongside me is my co-host, Pippa Sturt.
Hi, Andy.
Hey, and today we are joined by Akshat Rathi. How are you doing, Akshat?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I'm all right. I'm hanging in there. So Akshat is a senior reporter for climate at Bloomberg News and is also an author who has released his first book, Climate Capitalism, Winning the Global Race to Zero Emissions. Very good. Lovely book that it is. So Akshat, we always start with this. What's keeping Akshat up at night?
The usual thing that keeps me up at night is usually it's when a big story is coming out because I'm worried about getting something wrong. And once the piece is out and the fact is wrong, you have to get a correction. It's such an embarrassment. And so that usually keeps me up at night.
What's the process for fact checking? How does it work?
Depends on the story. Typically, if I'm the only author, then it's all on me. And I have to make sure
it's not a fun place to be.
No. And, sometimes once I'm done with a piece, I'm like, wait a second, it's only 1,000 words and there are 100 facts in there. How does anybody write every day and not make mistakes all the time? Yeah, so
I think you'll find we do. It just doesn't matter so much.
But I guess writing about this subject is that there's a lot more facts.
Yes, there's the science, there's technology, there's policy, there's numbers, there's projections, there's modeling. So yes, climate is a fun beat, complicated beat, but.
And if you get it wrong, does everyone jump up and down? Is that why it creates some sort of nervousness?
So corrections can be a big deal, especially, at Bloomberg, we cover the markets and you get something wrong and somebody's
the share price falls through the floor.
Exactly. Yeah. Somebody's making a trade. Somebody's going to lose a bunch of money and they could come and sue you. And so being right is very important. Not so much in what I do. It's not like based on what I'm writing, somebody's suddenly trading. Happens every so often, but not on a daily basis. And yet it's never nice to have a correction.
And is the climate information is for investors who are just looking at farming yields, or hugely, is it a million things? What do the people use the climate information for?
So right now it's mostly for sort of macro trends, to understand where to invest, to understand what kind of risks are coming to their own business if you're a big company. If you have a weather event that's going to cause your business to not be able to operate, you're going to have a loss in that region. And
you have a factory on a very low promontory.
Yeah.
on
it's
the
not
seashore.
just that. A very good example is Unilever, for example, would make money selling ice cream. There was a massive heat wave 2 years ago in Northwest North America, mostly in Canada, where temperatures reached 50 degrees Celsius during summer. You'd think that would be great for ice cream. People would want more ice cream. But the heat waves were so bad that people wouldn't leave their homes. There were wildfires that were started because of the heat, and ice cream sales dipped massively.
And there was no point in them buying the ice cream at the supermarket because by the time they got it home, it just melted over the back of the car. Yeah.
So
Okay.
business risk now and climate risk have intertwined, and it's very real for businesses.
And is that what the book's about? Or what's the book about?
The book is about this big looming thing that we think is going to eat us all, and we're doing nothing about it. And I show that's not true. We have started doing things about it around the world at scale. We're just not doing them fast enough. And I'm hoping through the success stories in the book, people learn lessons and apply them in other places, and we get on track.
So it's kind of, you can do it because these people are already doing it, and here's
That's
how.
right. That's right. And it's not easy, but we're not doing it because it's not easy. We're not doing it because we feel we cannot do something about it. That's not true.
And you particularly wanted to take an optimistic slant because it is one of those subjects, I guess, that can be quite negative all the time and puts everyone off. And
It's true. But also, as a journalist, a service that journalists provide, they provide other services, but one service journalists provide is to point to problems and get other people to solve those problems, because that's what we can do best. Writing a book is a different experience. You get to take some story, work on it for years, put it out.
Spend a long time on it.
Long time, right?
Yeah.
I finished the book last year. So people are reading something that I finished, did not touch very much over a year ago. So the stories have to be worthy of reading even after. And so I wanted to try and tell the story of solutions, to tell the story of success rather than problems. It's not to say I'm shying away from the problems. They are in there. I acknowledge them and I tell you all the challenges. But at the end of it, how do you overcome them and how people have overcome them?
come on, let's have a success story then. What give us one out of the book of, something to be optimistic about.
So about 6-7 years ago, China was the world's largest importer of cars. Today, it is the world's largest exporter of cars. It exports more cars than Germany, than Japan, than the US. And all that happened, not in that concentrated period of 6 years, but over the past 2 decades. And it's the second chapter in the book. It talks about this guy named Wang Gang, who was the Chinese science minister at the time for a decade between 2009 and 2017. He was an auto engineer by background. He'd grown up in China, but studied and then worked in Germany and saw what kind of lifestyle Germans had. And he wanted that for his people. But he also realized if he would want that, the amount of oil every Chinese person would consume would be 20 times as much as they were consuming in 2000. And there's just not enough oil for that. And so he came back to the government and made the case that we need to build our auto industry to not burn oil. Let's find other fuel sources. Let's find other power sources. And that's when they landed on trying to scale electric cars. And so during his time in office, he got the state to put in $60 billion into creating the entire supply chain for batteries, for electric cars, tens and hundreds of companies. And now we're at that place where the Europeans are worried we're going to get cheap Chinese EVs.
But you know what? That's really amazing for several reasons. But one reason that immediately occurs to me that it's amazing is because we always think of people doing climate change and caring about climate change as a very altruistic thing. You know, it's all about the planet and the people as a whole, and it's not about me. And you just told us a story where the entire impetus was, I would like a lifestyle and I'd like the people close around me to have a lifestyle, which I can't see us getting if we don't do this thing.
Absolutely. And I mean, that's why it's called climate capitalism. I mean, there is a sense that trying to tackle climate change, you have to undo the economic system because it's been responsible for putting, right? And sure, that would be a great ideal world to get into, but we don't actually know what that alternative system would look like and when will we build it and how long that will take. And so over here, the goal is to say, okay, we've got an economic system that runs. How can we fix it to actually solve the problem rather than worsen it?
And is there stuff in here? mean, is there stuff in here as well for when I say in here, I'm pointing at the book, but is there stuff in here as well for kind of SMEs and the smaller businesses about what they can be doing and how they can do it?
Absolutely. I think the good part of climate change in a way is that we all need to be a part of the solution in some way. Whether you are a small business, big business, an individual working in a corporation, all of us have a role to play, big and small. But small, medium enterprises are crucial for the transition. I mean, take the example of cars, right? Cars, okay, we talk about the big manufacturers, we talk about the big brands. They rely absolutely on the small and medium enterprise to provide all the thousands of parts that are made that they assemble in cars. Most of the time, they're not making those things. Yeah. And so the small and medium enterprise has to deliver. It's the same case with Unilever, right? One of the world's largest conglomerates that provides all these products that most people don't even know they come from Unilever. But most of those ingredients are coming from small and medium enterprises, from farmers, from other people growing things for them. And so absolutely, there's a role for them.
The example you gave of China, I mean, that China's very good at doing these sort of mass projects, isn't it? And it can just sort of steamroller it through, decide what it's going to do. Is that going to be important globally, that governments have the power just to push stuff through effectively?
So China is an extreme example, obviously, because of the politics of the country, right? They can, to some extent, steamroll. There's also a little bit of nuance there. It's not as simple as a dictator saying, this happened, this needs to happen, and it happens. Even in China, governments push back against other governments. There's fights between bureaucrats, there's corruption.
Yes, but isn't that when somebody falls out a window? Or something equivalent to that?
Yes, so but you're right. Governments have to play a bigger and bigger role. It doesn't have to be a role where they dictate, but they do have to give more direction. Because at the end of the day, we've kind of the problem as we've landed up with is we've been ignoring the externalities of climate change. We've been ignoring what we are doing when we just freely pollute. And so now we have to take those costs into consideration, and somebody has to bring those costs to bear. And if businesses don't internalize on their own, and they rarely will, voluntarily, nobody's going to tax themselves, right? And so you do need to involve governments. They just need to give you direction. It doesn't mean you need to kill competition. It doesn't mean you need to kill markets, but that's why it's climate capitalism. It's a change in the way we do business.
Has it been a passion of yours for a long time? I mean, you did climate at Bloomberg News. Was that just random? You ended up in that department, or?
To some extent. I mean, my passion was I've been a nerd all through growing up. I like science and math and studied engineering, and I thought I'll become a professor. So I did a PhD in chemistry. But alongside, I used to write as a hobby. And doing my PhD, I was like, nah. Okay, I thought I was going to be somebody and I don't want to be that person. Now what? So I turned sort of my writing hobby into trying to do journalism. I was like, okay, well, I have some knowledge that I've gained spending years in the lab and studying science. What can I do with it? And at the time, it felt to me there was a need, and still is a need, for storytellers who know the subject. And so I started as a science journalist. And then the climate turn sort of came because of Donald Trump. Donald Trump was elected in 2017. And around 2016, he was campaigning about this thing called clean coal, which is a marketing phrase.
No shit.
But he continued on the bandwagon for so long. My editors were like, well, what is he talking about? And I said, well, there is actually something real underneath it. He doesn't understand it, but it's a technology called carbon capture. You can actually trap emissions from power plants or industry and then bury them deep underground. It's a thing that's been happening for the last 3 decades. And they were like, wait a second. Can you write more about that, please? And so that's how I started.
Is that a permanent, this is just a random curious thing from me because I don't know much about it, but is that a permanent sort of solution, carbon capture? Is there enough kind of space underground to shove everything we don't want under there forever?
Yes, it is a permanent solution. It can be done in the right place at the right time. And there is enough space. I mean, we do live in a big, big planet. And there is a lot of space around the world to be able to do stuff like this. So when you do end up putting the carbon dioxide in the ground, it's not like it's a gas sitting in a tank.
We don't put it so far down that it comes out in Australia and then there's a problem. I mean, my geography is not good, but...
No, but it does, because carbon dioxide itself is a chemical, right? You compress it, it becomes a liquid, it goes down, you put it in these little pores. And in the right places, like Iceland, there are rocks called basalt rocks where the carbon dioxide reacts with the rock and actually becomes a mineral. So it's trapped as stone.
That's cool. That is cool. Sorry. I did not know that, and now my mind is blown. Carry on.
Yeah, I mean, but at the moment, it's the sort of obsession for carbon, isn't it? You know, you wonder at the sacrifice of what else? Because I mean, it's a bit like we had someone talking about, you know, there's a nature crisis also going on, and everyone's sort of obsessed with climate. Do you think it's sort of folly of us to sort of just focus on CO2 and just be like, well, we've got to fix it, you know?
Oh, there's a really nice cartoon that goes, it's like a series of waves, and they're bigger and bigger and bigger, and they've all got these terrorizing monster mouths. The smallest is COVID, then there's climate change, then there's biodiversity, then there's nature. We are in a world where we are facing all these problems. That doesn't mean we should just solve one, but there is a very good case to make why we should be focusing on climate change, because every other problem becomes worse if we also don't deal with climate change, if we don't deal with carbon dioxide, but also generally greenhouse gases. So another story in the book is this lady named Bryony Worthington. She's now Baroness Bryony Worthington. She sits in the House of Lords. And she started as an English major wanting to do conservation, loves nature, wanted to protect animals. And for the first few years, she did that. And then one fine day, she had a bunch of scientists, and they were like, well, we are working on all this hard stuff, but is it going to matter anyway? Because climate change is coming. And that's when the penny dropped for her. And she's like, I had not thought about it that way. And now she's a climate person. So it's not to say that's the only problem to solve, but every other problem becomes worse if we don't solve it.
And what do you feel? I mean, is Bloomberg a good platform to sort of, you know, is it a balanced platform, these sort of large news platforms? I don't know where Bloomberg sits in the universe.
I mean, it's very business focused, isn't
Correct.
it? So it's looking at it through a business lens, right?
Yeah, follow the money is probably the best mantra to describe what we do at Bloomberg News. And that's one way to do journalism. And I think it's a pretty valuable way to do journalism because at the end of the day, money moves the world. And if you're able to track it and you're able to find it, where it goes, how it goes, why it moves, it's a good way to understand the world. It's one lens, though. It's not the only lens. But yeah, I find it a pretty interesting place to work. There is debate and openness, and no subject is off topic. You can cover everything as long as there is a business financial lens to it.
And is the climate desk, is it growing, I guess?
So I joined in 2020 and they launched a vertical called Bloomberg Green. And it was about 6-7 people. It was about 6-7 people at the time, and now it's about 20 people. So it's grown quite a bit. We are probably the largest climate desk of a newsroom in the world.
What do you think the kind of key issues are right now? You know, are people focusing on doing things differently so that, you know, you don't create these emissions in the first place, or how to solve them once they're there?
If we look at it globally, the biggest challenge is that money to do climate solutions is not being spent in developing countries. So there is a big gap between what we're doing here in Europe or in North America, spending money on renewables and on electric cars, and in China too. But in countries like India or Indonesia or South Africa or
Talking like the
Brazil,
BRICS and things like that.
yes, those are the places where a lot more investment needs to go in climate solutions. And it's not happening because they don't have the money. And you need these global investors sitting in the US and Europe to invest in those regions. And they, at this present moment, are shirking away. They are like, well, emerging markets, too risky.
How do you get them to do it?
It's a very hard problem. That's one like big piece of missing solution that we need to figure out. I mean, the closest we get to is this wonky idea that's come out recently. It's called the Just Energy Transition Partnership. And it's
Just
for
as
justice.
in right. Yeah.
Yep.
Just
Energy Transition Partnership.
Okay.
And it's basically an idea where rich countries and investors bring money in to try and help countries like Indonesia and South Africa to move away from coal, because coal is the dirtiest form of fuel. And if you move to cleaner fuel, you get air pollution reduction and you get lower carbon emissions. So the country wins and the planet wins. So you want a win-win solution. And that's where they're bringing in government money, but also big, large private investors. And it's a messy experiment. Any experiment of this size where you're moving tens of billions of dollars is going to be hard to pull off. But that's probably the best example right now.
It's a sort of, we're reliant on big business, but, also with things like what's happened with Thames Water, they seem to be not so good
It's
at...
not entirely altruistic.
not entirely helping. I mean, you feel so powerless as a small business.
Absolutely.
And you don't know what to do or what you should be doing in a thing. I mean, how do you see it? Do you see that the big businesses have to lead and with government support, like you're saying?
That's one way to do it. There is no way around getting big businesses to change as well, because it's not like we're going to dismantle all the big businesses and just have small businesses running the show. And so that's definitely one thing that you need to do. But if you look at the Thames Water problem, I mean, it's also in a very weird market, right? It's operating as a regulated monopoly. And in a regulated monopoly, the regulator needs to be directing you to do the things that the regulator requires you to do. In response, you as a monopoly get to make money. So if the government didn't do its job and kept allowing...
And they are a monopoly, which is, really strange.
Right? And so if they don't do their job as a regulator and let the company make money without getting the services they require, then whose fault is it?
I guess the regulator, or I guess the regulator hasn't got enough teeth, is it? Or?
That's right. I mean, businesses have a way of sort of trying to corrupt the political system, because then they make their life easy. And so there is sort of this rotating door, which we follow closely, of politicians going into business and vice versa. There are all these rules around how MPs should, after leaving their jobs, not get into lobbying and not getting into business. And, if they do, what's the fine they have to pay? A few tens of thousands of pounds. Businesses can afford that.
And is that the level of fines they would look at?
It is, sadly.
And a lot of the time, particularly when MPs are still MPs, the decision is made by somebody who's answerable to the MPs.
Yes.
Why aren't the regulators stronger? I mean, why can't they fine them heavier? I mean, always fines, you always see, record fine, and you think, that's nothing to that company,
It's true. Most of the time, these fines are not very much. No, the regulators need more teeth, but also regulators are, after all, they are politicians who are elected by people. So people need to realize who are the right politicians we need to pick, because it's through that power that those politicians will have the teeth to make hard decisions.
Okay, but I mean, you managed to find some optimistic stories in what's going on, and that's on the basis that, hey, we should be able to sort something out here if we can do it in theory.
Yeah, and there is no reason to believe we can't. The technology kind of is there. There'll be innovation needed, but we've got the time. We do know what types of policies we need. We have the entrepreneurs. The number of people working on climate solutions is just absolutely bonkers already and growing. So it can be done, but it's not being done at the pace we need.
And because Britain was trying to play a sort of leading role in this, is that not so true anymore, or is it important we do?
If you are going to lead in this fight, you will benefit from it. So look at what China is doing, right? When it went down the electric car route, the battery route, it created an industry for itself that's now a global leader. That's why the Europeans are afraid that cheap Chinese cars are going to come to their shores. So that is the place of the future. That's where the future industries are going to be, and that's where the future jobs are going to be. You can play slow if you would like, but then you lose out in the long term. And the UK, even today, is the leader in cutting emissions globally. This is true among the large economies, yes, among all the large economies, among all the G20 countries. And it is at a risk, and has been for a few years now, not just under Sunak, but under Boris Johnson, under Theresa May, of losing that position because it's not on track. And so when Sunak comes in and says, "Oh, we've been so good so far, we can slow down a little bit," that's just rhetoric. That's politics.
And do you think, like, if you're building an office building now and things, that you should be investing, a large proportion more than you would otherwise to make it super carbon neutral? I mean, this is a sort of it's the same for people's homes, isn't it? It's all very well saying you're going to get a heat pump and things, but the costs are astronomical. So it's a real issue.
And that's why you need policy support. That's why you need clarity that there are deadlines, you have to meet them, that there will be support for you if these prices are high, and they are in certain cases. I mean, heat pumps, an actual real thing that the government can do is change the price of electricity. So we're currently paying a fee for renewable electricity as part of the net zero mandate in our electricity bills.
We all are we?
All are.
Oh,
So
wow.
it's a small amount. It comes in our bills. It's not noticeable in that sense because it's been there for many years. But you could very well apply that fee and put it on gas instead of electricity. We've got already such good clean electricity now. We don't need to be charging more on electricity when it's becoming cleaner. You want to charge more on the dirty stuff, which is gas. And that's a rule that can absolutely be changed by the government.
Do you feel, as part of a larger media outlet, that you can make a difference with your voice, or do you feel that the sort of independent media outlets are, more able to sort of get?
This is a game I left long back. So when I wanted to become a professor, I wanted to become a professor because I wanted to change the world. And then I went into academia and I saw what I was doing, which was sitting in a lab for hours and hours and hours,
Yes.
trying to make a dent in the corner of a scientific paper that only 100 people are going to read. And that might change the world, but in a way that nobody will notice. And so I kind of decided at that time, there's very little an individual has the power to controllably change the world. The people who get to change the world often are quite lucky to be in the place and the time to do it. The best I can do is the effort I can put into whatever work I'm doing. So it's a little bit of a Zen koan type of situation, but I've made peace with the fact that I don't know if I'll change the world. I'm just going to try my best to tell the best stories I can.
Yeah. And stories are it's always about stories, isn't it? That seems to be what we engage with as
Humans love stories.
Yes.
And it's such a negative conversation, the climate change thing. So, I mean, so outside of the book, you follow the same approach, trying. At the same time, people don't like optimistic news, they don't really engage with all the good news,
Yeah, I mean, I try to be honest. My approach to doing journalism is basically, I have been developing an understanding of the world as I've learned. And if something doesn't quite land and I don't understand it, I'll ask. If something you say is not something you're doing, I will ask you a question. If there's a big thing that's changed and nobody understands it, I'll try and ask that question. So it's very much curiosity driven. And then stories are the route to tell it. Once I've learned the thing, then I find a way to tell the story, find the character that
That's
may be
the
able to
bit that
understand
people
stuff.
remember. That's the bit that sticks in people's mind, is the interesting story, not the stats.
Yes.
Okay, so an optimistic book or some stories, we can do it. We need the governmental help. I mean, is there anything tangible right now that a small or medium-sized business should be doing or could do?
The quickest one would be to deploy renewable energy. So a lot of renewable energy that you can build on your sort of warehouse, your office, is affordable, is cheap, actually will cut bills and makes a big difference. The second, if you're in sort of the colder regions as the UK, is to insulate your office, have an office that has good air circulation, is more efficient at managing heat, because the largest energy consumption for buildings is heat here in the UK. About 30% of all our emissions from the entire year come from sort of wintertime heating. So you could do a lot just managing those two things.
Try and get people to turn the lights off too. That's always the...
Lights are totally fine now.
Really?
Really. Like LEDs are so efficient.
Oh, we can leave the lights on.
You
it's
can
fine.
leave the lights
Leave the
on.
lights on.
Oh, fantastic. Fantastic.
But I mean, it's only going to get worse as we all now want air conditioning as well as heating in the winter. So we're kind of doubling up on
We are.
on that electricity use.
Absolutely. I mean, air conditioning use is growing everywhere. When I grew up in India, in Nasik especially, the weather was fantastic. We never needed air conditioning. But for the last 5 years, my parents have been complaining, and eventually they got an air conditioner.
Yeah, I mean, nowadays, most people in India probably have one, wouldn't they, really?
Not really. I
Oh.
mean, it's India is still a pretty poor country.
Yeah,
So,
okay.
your average income is $2,500 a year.
A year, that's the average income in India. Wow. My goodness.
I mean, there are certain places, you go to the US, particularly the southern US, and you don't really walk into anywhere that hasn't got the air conditioning.
Oh, yeah.
blast.
I was in Singapore recently. Absolutely the same case. Every place is chilled because of air conditioning. Otherwise, you wouldn't be able to work. You wouldn't be able to function more efficiently. Like walking out, you're only out there for a little bit of time in the daytime. In the evening and in the morning, it's fine. But during peak sun hours, you really don't want to be out there.
Yeah. I mean, I went to Vegas a few years ago and it was 40 something.
Wow.
And when you open the door of the hotel, it was like you were being smacked in the face.
Yeah.
It's like sauna.
Straight into the cab that has air conditioning, or straight into the, what's your long-term goal for what you're doing?
It's one of those things, again, I've sort of kind of given up on the long-term plan. When I gave up on being a professor, I was like, I had a long-term plan. I had a 5-year plan, I had a 10-year plan, and I was going to do this. And then I was like, wait a second, I don't really control what's happening. So to me, just being able to tell good stories and do good journalism in the long term, that sounds like a good plan.
That's a good plan. How old are you?
36.
You can't ask people that.
You can. I mean, do you feel that the news industry does seem in a bit of a sort of crazy state? But, is Bloomberg in a nice, healthy place, or are you sort of,
Bloomberg's been that way, a nice place to work, because it has a business model that funds news in a sustainable way, because it provides all these services to financial institutions that require that information and do pay the money for that information. So Bloomberg is among the rare places which are doing okay. New York Times is probably the other one.
FT, is that doing
Financial
okay?
Times is doing all right. So the business publications, Wall Street Journal is doing fairly okay. The business publications tend to do okay.
It's kind of ironic because they're all about money, but in a weird way, they're sort of some of the most balanced out there at the moment. You know what I mean? In terms of they're just trying to fact report, as opposed to sort of sensationalize so much.
If you want to make money, you need to understand reality.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well put.
Yeah, but also I think you're right, because I keep banging on about it, really. It was because it was such a great day. I went to the Financial Times summer kind of thing that they threw at.
Festival.
Yeah, festival. And it was just great, but it wasn't just a few of the talks had business slants and they were really interesting, but there were talks on all kinds of crazy shit. I mean, not because it was very measured and very thought-provoking and really interesting, but, they came across as very serious and thoughtful journalists. And I think you get the same from Bloomberg or any of those kind of business.
It's not tittle-tattle.
Yeah.
What Harry and Meghan's doing is not really relevant for business.
What has been would you say your biggest failure so far? Was there something that happened that you really wish hadn't?
I mean, I wouldn't study engineering.
I studied engineering. God, no. There's no women. Did you study engineering in India?
India, yes.
What is it called?
It's called the Institute of Chemical Technology. It's in Mumbai. But I wouldn't study engineering because...
You did chemical engineering.
Chemical engineering too. Yeah.
Nobody understands chemistry. Chemistry's crazy. But that's a great basis for climate.
But I suppose it's also narrowing your interest very
early. That's the problem I had.
Specific,
yes. In India, there's so much competition. Just so many of us that you have to kind of hyper specialize as you grow up. And I feel like that's one lost opportunity in life. Where I had to hyper specialize because that's what everybody did.
You can still expand.
Well, that's what I'm doing now as a journalist. I learn on the job.
People in India work crazy hours. All the Indians I work with, they always answer their phone. Constantly messaging you constantly.
It's a hustle. Being in India, it's a hustle. You got to make it work for you, and if that means working long hours, you have to.
Out of interest, do you translate that here? Do you find you still work longer than your London colleagues?
Yeah, sadly so.
Yeah, really.
It's just survival instinct. I mean, it's to some extent, it's not just being Indian, it's also being an immigrant.
Yeah.
You come to a country, you don't know the culture. So what do? You turn around and you do the best you can at the work that you can do. And so
To make all the locals look bad, so everyone hates you. Yeah.
How long have you been here?
it's been 15 years now.
Okay. So you should be pretty au fait with how relaxed we all are. You don't believe in work-life balance?
No, I mean, I like work-life balance. I mean, there is, it's necessary because you can't work your way through doing good work. Your brain only can function for so long. So you need to be able to take the breaks and be able to give yourself the room to be able to think and do the hard work. I mean, especially the kind of work I do is all mental work. I'm speaking to people, I'm trying to connect the dots. And so, no, my sort of work-life balance is exercise.
I was going to say, what do you do for fun? But exercise is not fun.
Oh, I thought so too. And then 3 years ago, I started exercising and it's fun. And I can't believe it. I used to laugh at people who used to go for runs. I'd be like, what are you doing? Why do you run looking at the same track for 2 hours? And now I'm that
Are you
person.
sure it's not fun? It's just a fun to have the buzz afterwards, isn't it?
But there is the buzz during.
Is there?
Yes.
I had a friend who was she was actually a classics professor at a university, but she was also a fitness instructor. And she was always like, oh, the endorphins are amazing. You'll enjoy it so much. And I'm like, no, I just exercise for an hour and then I feel tired and ill. I mean, I don't get
exactly
it.
what I used to say. Like, I cannot, like, every time I talk about this, I'm like, I can't believe I'm that person now.
What changed?
I started doing it because I gained a little bit of weight and it was pretty apparent. And then I was like, well, what can I do? Maybe I should start running. And then it just got addictive. It is addictive.
It's addictive, yeah.
And the fact that it's addictive is absolutely crazy to me.
You should so totally start exercising.
I do exercise.
Do you?
Yes. Why are you saying that
I
to
don't
me?
know. I just, because it feels like it would fit with your personality quite well.
So, any great advice you've ever been given?
Negotiate a salary.
Negotiate a salary.
Yeah. I didn't do that for the first 3 jobs.
What, all the time? Or
Whenever you change a job, every time you have a raise, negotiate your salary.
do you think like you should bullshit what people always bullshit what they were earning? What are you currently on? You sort of, people often quite often
I'm
inflate
surprised
that.
by that because I always assume that if I haggle, which is kind of another word for
Yeah.
negotiate, that you're just going to be seen as difficult.
But to me, it was more
You
like,
are. But the Indians just love to do it, but the English hate it.
well, we haggle for paying money. Yes, there's a lot of haggling in the market. But when it comes to salary, I was just grateful somebody thought I could write. And so if somebody's giving me a job to write, I'm like, great, thank you for paying me to do something I like.
Whereas it's like, because I'm worth it, you should be paying me more.
Yes.
That would be your approach, would it? Just straight up, I think you should pay me more.
Yes, I will try and understand the market. And if I'm being paid under the market, I will ask for what market rate is.
It's really
Should
hard to
go,
work
girl.
out market rates, though. People say you can, but it's actually
These
really
days,
difficult.
at least in my generation that I've seen, people are pretty transparent about talking about salaries. And
I
that's
mean,
a good
if companies always tell their staff they're not allowed to talk about salary and
Mhm.
staff always talk about salary, there's
Yeah.
no two ways about it.
Yeah.
How many people in your building in Bloomberg? Are you in the big fancy Bloomberg building?
Yeah, it's
oh,
like
nice.
5,000 people.
It's a lovely
wow.
building.
Yeah.
Are they still giving away all the free food?
Yes.
Wow. Okay, that's a selling point. So you wouldn't move to BBC News then as well. So I guess this isn't within the field of journalism, but I guess it could also be in the field of what you sort of study around climate change and stuff. But what do you think is bullshit in your industry and why?
I think social media is
Yeah.
bullshit. It's
Yeah.
sort of like you have to be on it because everybody else is on it. And it's not a healthy place. It's not a place that
Are you on kind of like all social media
I have to be.
feeds?
There's just
Okay.
no way around it.
I really agree with the it's like it's poison, but you have to be on it. It's a sort of, because otherwise if you're not on it, no one knows what you're doing.
Yeah. And it's problem with that there is no way to do it healthily. You kind of have to be on it and in it.
All or nothing.
It's, yeah.
Does anyone love social media? I mean, because I get the feeling, certainly people who have to produce stuff for social media, that actually no one actually really likes it, basically, underneath it.
I really love social media. Well, no, I lie. I really love X.
Oh my God, you said it.
Wow.
I know, I did say it.
You've moved on.
I have moved on. I've just got to get over it because I'm on Blue Sky and I'm trying to use Blue Sky and I'm trying to do that whole thing. But I just love
Blue Sky's
Twitter.
the sort of new competitor.
Yeah,
is it?
I mean, I love Twitter. I love the curated like people that I follow. I love them all.
But don't you think it's lost its magic? There was a moment when
Yeah.
Twitter was good, and now it's sort of like because of this, people
But I
splitting
still,
their time
I
into
still
other
enjoy
places.
it. Yeah, but I, and everybody says, "Oh, it's really poisonous," and I don't see that purely because I'm just a small person who doesn't really have any followers.
It's very funny, but I do note that a lot of the time when it's funny is someone is getting proper lambasted.
Oh, yeah.
Someone has posted something on social media and then it's hilarious, everyone. Then you're like, but there's actually someone there who's getting absolutely slammed. And that must be a horrible experience.
No, but sometimes, this morning I couldn't stop laughing and it's not even that funny, but it was a headline so it was £77,000 to tailor, i.e. design, swift nesting sites.
Oh, right.
Like swifts,
I see.
the birds. And the headline was like, Leicestershire Council gives 77,000 to tailor swift nesting sites. And somebody had tweeted, I sort of assumed she stayed in hotels. And I literally couldn't stop laughing for about 10 minutes. And it's like just moments like that. You're like, that's be me.
Yeah, in my world,
But
it's more
not
like
always like that.
it's more disinformation. It's sort of like twisting the facts. It's making up stuff. It's doing climate denialism. It's taking good stuff and cherry picking and making bad stuff out of it.
And as a journalist, where you've got a job that requires you to sort of seek out real stuff as opposed to fake news, I can imagine that's
it's very
really hard.
We need more public education. We need more critical thinking. We need people to be able to understand the complex world we are in. But what social media ends up doing is oversimplifying, dumbing it down to an extent where it becomes absurd. And then you're able to just twist the words as you would like to, feed your own interests.
And it's also, and it feels like that whole social media thing where you can say what you like and just make shit up is now bleeding over into mainstream media, right?
I mean, media in a way is actually a reflection of society, right? We kind of get the media
we deserve. Of
it's
course.
the politicians. It's the same situation, right? Like the media is making its money off of you, right? The audience. And if the audience wants a certain thing, that's what the media will give you. So it is a sad situation that's true if it's bleeding into media as much. And yes, I mean, GB News is sort of like the Fox News coming from America to the UK, right?
We're a country of Daily Mail readers.
We talked a bit about regulators. I have to ask, with my accounting hat on, are you aware of there's a new audit standard and stuff? Do you think there's so much, greenwashing and everything,
Mm-hmm.
but do you think, this sort of pushing companies to disclose and stuff is having an effect or?
Oh, we know it's having an effect.
Okay.
So we've seen when we write stories about calling companies out on their greenwashing, they get careful the next time around.
How do you mean they get careful? They hide it better, or
Either they're hiding it better, or we've also seen them stopping doing the bad thing.
That would be part of your job to try and identify people
Yes.
doing greenwashing. And it's
Absolutely.
rife, isn't it?
Oh, very easy, because it's so easy to make up the numbers and it's so easy to sell an idea, but to test it is hard. And so that's our job. And there's so much of it that we get to it slowly through company by company.
So it's very research-led, your journalism.
Yes, very much.
It's like just trying to get the facts and read the data.
Mm-hmm.
You're all scientists then, basically.
No, but facility with numbers is useful.
Yeah, okay.
But also, that's a great defense of why reporting stuff, like doing the financial reporting, is actually useful.
Yeah.
Like you're sort of sitting there saying, oh my God, there's so many more rules on audits and it's a pain in the butt for us to have to.
No, I think it's probably good, the new audit thing, but audits are a pain
Yeah.
for sure.
Yes.
And the companies have to produce a load more stuff than they had to do before, and that's a pain for them. But there's
Yes.
clearly method in the madness.
Of course. And bureaucracy, I mean, too much regulation will also bog businesses down. That is also a true correct line. But you do need regulations, good regulations.
And I guess you're in a profession and we're in a profession. So there is still a profession as a journalism with integrity and a duty to get it right and stuff. You know, again, being driven by you're writing for a publication that has to get it right because people are making financial decisions, you know, and accuracy is everything.
And I've been a journalist 10 years of my life, and I've been fortunate to be surrounded by really good journalists all through that. I've not been at Bloomberg for all that period, but all the places I've worked at, I've only found honest people wanting to do the hard work at pretty low salaries because they believe in the service that journalism provides. And again, that may be a bubble, right? Every one of us lives in a bubble, but it's been a big enough bubble that I have learned from them and tried to apply that craft.
Do you think journalists should be paid more?
100%. It's like teachers should be paid more, nurses should be paid more. They are providing a service to society that's not compensated to the right level.
Now we're going to do a 10-second quickfire round.
Yeah.
We're going to ask you a list of questions and you just quick answers, please. Up to 10 seconds. DEQ the music. Akshat, are you ready?
I am ready.
Very good.
What was your first job?
Putting out leaflets for a marketing thing.
In India?
No, here at Oxford.
Oh, very good. What was your worst job?
Putting out leaflets.
That's the first time ever that we've had the same first job and worst job. And I love that.
Yeah.
What was your favourite subject at school?
Maths.
Ugh.
Not chemistry. What's your special skill?
Being able to nap at any point in time.
Nap.
Oh, that's a great skill.
Anywhere, anytime.
Could you do it now, do you think?
Yeah, you'll have to give me my headphones. Yeah, that's it. I just need headphones.
Why, you put music on, do
Yeah.
you? Oh, what sort of music?
It's Max Richter piano.
Okay. And that just knocks you out, does it? So if they play that in public, it's dangerous. You're driving a vehicle.
Narcolepsy.
Yeah.
What did you want to be when you grew up?
The earliest memory of this is wanting to be a pilot.
Wow. A jet pilot or like a airline pilot?
I did not fly till I was 15, but I wanted to be one when I was 3 years old. I was like, wow, you can fly.
Isn't that the most damaging thing for the environment, though?
It is.
Yeah. So you're ambitious.
I didn't know
change.
climate change existed
It's
when I
trying
was
to
3
make you
years
feel
old.
guilty.
What did your parents want you to be?
An engineer.
Did they?
What's your go-to karaoke song?
It's a very embarrassing one. I need to have 3, maybe 5. It's Barbie Girl, Backwa.
Barbie girl.
Yeah.
I'm your Barbie girl.
Yeah, and I'll always do it with somebody, and the Ken part in there are so little. And that's why
Doesn't he just go, come on, Barbie, let's go party?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Oh,
I mean, I'm embarrassed that I know that, but
I haven't seen the Barbie film, but everyone says it's brilliant. Have you seen the Barbie film?
it's
No.
amazing. But in that, Ken's just beach.
Office dogs, business or bullshit?
Business.
Oh, very good.
What's your vice?
Video games.
Is it?
I get obsessed.
What kind of like
Absolutely
story
obsessed.
kind of driven
Mostly
video
narrative, but also sometimes sort of arcadey when I want to beat a high score. Video games it's so easy.
Anything we should be listening to, watching, reading,
Yes.
apart from climate capitalism?
If you want to do more of understanding where we are in the world with climate solutions, there's a book called Bottled Lightning, which is about batteries and how they came to be. And I really found it fascinating. Another one, just from a work-life balance perspective, is a book called 4,000 Weeks by Oliver Burkeman. Really nice book.
Is that how many weeks you have to live, is it?
That's right. And it's kind of an anti-productivity book. So I'm not selling it very well, but it's actually a productivity book, which is to say it's a good book, read it.
What, it's a productivity book that makes you not productive? You mean?
No, it's the other way around. It's a book about a philosophical rant on why productivity as a concept that we have understood is wrong.
Okay.
And to break out from that concept and be actually productive, have to do things very differently than we've been taught to, with all these life hacks and these efficiency things that we come up with. It's a good book.
Wow. I like
That
a
sounds
philosophical rant. That's
Yeah.
always
What
a
was
good
it called?
thing.
4,000 weeks. Yeah.
That doesn't feel like very many.
No, that's
It's
why they
not.
do it like that. It isn't
Exactly.
very long. Terrifying.
I'm now scared.
I know.
Chris Packham's latest documentary on Channel 4.
Oh, the legend Chris Packham, who I grew up with, the nature guy.
Is it Time to Break the Law? Worth watching.
Yeah.
It's on Channel 4. You can watch it online.
Okay, wow. What's it about?
It's about Chris Packham going to Just Stop Oil protests.
It's about whether being an activist is something it's now so serious that it's something you should consider.
Not just that. He is an activist. He says that from start. He says, is it now that activists need to break the law to be able to make change happen?
God. Yeah, I guess to some extent they always have to.
Okay, so this is where we give you 30 seconds to pitch whatever you'd like. Away you go.
Well, I hope people will read Climate Capitalism and all the stories of very interesting people who are solving some of the problems that we really do need to solve, and may others learn from them.
Brilliant.
Fantastic.
So there you have it. That was this week's episode of Business Without Bullshit. Thank you, Akshat. Thank you, Pippa. Thank you, Dee. We'll be back with our quiz, Business or Bullshit, on Friday. Until then, it's ciao.